Alright, it's time to end this back on Fastoon. And it's serious, it's serious because it's night time.
Tachyon's fighters have locked onto our position. I'm not sure we can shake them.
If you jettison the excess cargo, you could increase your speed.
No.
Yeah, we already did that with the Sparkler. God damn it.
But
Oh, and suddenly
the
Kronk
thing,
and Zephyr are joining us.
then they ejected them when they were still in outer space, though, didn't you?
Well, no.
We were still in the atmosphere at that point.
Basically, it's just nighttime, so it looked like space, but no, it's not.
Basically, because it's the final level, the game is literally throwing everything in a kitchen sink at you at this point. So I hope you leveled up, enough your weapons.
Oh, for a second there, I thought this game was going to be like, okay, this is the final level, so as soon as you land, we're going to blast something at you, and if you don't dodge it within like a nanosecond,
Well,
you
it
die.
wasn't, it was even before we even landed, if you noticed, with all the missiles.
No, I mean, like something in like that. You know that very first game you get in Action 52, where if you don't dodge immediately, you crash and.
Oh, so something kind of like I wanna be the guy. Okay. Basically, one of the things we need to do is to actually destroy the anti-air turrets so that the tall wind can actually land. If I recall correctly, I don't remember when it actually happens, but if I recall correctly, at one point the game glitches out so that the music stops. So we had to insert another one from Everhood to, to not have things being awkwardly silent.
Yeah.
But yeah, otherwise you have to, deal with the remaining forces combined of the Cragmites and again the forces that Tachyon has been using since the beginning of the game. I think Terrachnoids, that's the name. I forgot the actual name.
Let's see. So, anyway, the voice actress of the ship, Raja Barodi, interestingly enough, she got her start not with Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, but Big Bad Beetleborgs, which was, if I recall correctly...
another Saban show.
Yes, if I recall correctly, that was Saban's lesser successful venture in bringing over a Japanese bout.
Basically trying to have one of the Kamen Riders, I think, series being released.
Well, I mean, from the sounds of it, it was more successful than Masked Rider, where I swear, the only thing popular from Masked Rider was the music, and mostly because they just lifted a few of the tracks from that into the dub of Digimon.
How specific.
Anyway, she played Jar on that. Now, what more people might recognize her for was starting out with Power Rangers Lost Galaxy as Hexaba. And then apparently she doesn't really have any major credits until Tools of Destruction in 2007. So, between 1999 and 2007, although, to be fair, Hexaba may have had multiple appearances in Lost Galaxy.
Considering how they bothered to get, I keep forgetting his name, the guy that we mentioned who voiced Mario, tell Mario for old Mr. Zircon for this game. I get the idea whoever did the casting had a very specific vision in mind.
Hey, you know what?
Mark Ruffalo, I think.
You know what? I want the woman from Power Rangers and Beetleborgs, specifically Lost Galaxy and Big Bad Beetleborgs.
I mean, it's not like Lost Galaxy isn't a popular series.
True, yeah, especially after it was picking up the pieces of Turbo at the time.
That was in space.
Yeah, I think Lost Galaxy was after in space.
Never mind, yeah, my bad, I mixed up the two, but still, though, it's interesting, though, because after Tools of Destruction, we suddenly see a lot more roles from her. She was in Garfield Gets Real, Star Wars The Clone Wars, Ratchet and Clank, well, of course, the more Ratchet and Clank games as the ship.
That's the thing, I don't think I mentioned this, but Aphelion kinda stops talking after, while in the games. As in,
great.
She does get a speaking role at the beginning of A Crack in Time, like one line, But after that, if I recall correctly, there isn't much. I don't remember if she actually talks, at least speaks a bit more in either All for One and Full Frontal Assault / Q Force. But I can tell you that she doesn't say anything in Into the Nexus, far as my memory goes. So again,
It's once again
it's one of these plot points again, giving Ratchet a ship connected to the Lombaxes, which has a sentient AI that he can talk to, and they don't really do much with it.
It's okay. It's like I've mentioned before. One of my issues with the newer Ratchet and Clank games was how fast and loose they played with the cast. Like, sure, I'm not expecting every single character to constantly come back, but then you got some characters that you think, oh wow, a very important essential character, like a no love interest for Ratchet, or a ship tied to his race that he misses immensely. Like, it'd be like if the comics suddenly went, oh wait, Superman is a fortress of solitude that reminds him of his home planet and has recordings from his people? Whoops, we forgot about that for 100
Or hey,
issues.
Drova, it would be like, hey, let's have the invisible plane actually have a conscience and be the spirit of someone that falls in love with Wonder Woman. Oh wait.
You know, you say that, and yet that still is not as convoluted as half of the stuff they do with Donna Troy's backstory.
Well, that was just a point to mention that no, comic books are not exempt from this.
Oh yes, absolutely. But like, yeah, no, I don't get why the Ratchet and Clank series plays so fast and loose with its cast. I get it. It's a more cartoony, upbeat series, but that doesn't mean that it's a series that, goes on SpongeBob logic of resetting its continuity. There is still a continuity after all.
I think this is the moment where I actually shifted the music. Again, I picked something that was more resembling, the action that's going on. To give you an idea for the track, Dweebs, I will give you a vague context because I always be very spoilery. Imagine if you will, if the tutorial for your game is given you by a more grumpy version of Kermit the Frog, then at one point this version of Kermit the Frog tells you to kill everyone in the world, and if you say no, he goes apeshit. That's kind of what's happening with this track.
Like many things, it makes sense in context.
Again, Everhood is an acquired taste in many things, not just the soundtrack, because the themes of the story may be something a lot of people may disagree with, because it takes a very, very specific stance on certain arguments. But I did enjoy it at the end of the day. They even made a sequel recently, which was a bit more polarizing because it was a more light-hearted experience, technically. Again, it's complicated, all in due time.
I forget if the creators ever mentioned that they were inspired by Undertale. Like,
yeah,
I mean, just looking at it.
Yeah, even looking at the Steam page, you know it, because one of the early fights that you have is with an ATM, which gets to have one of the faces that Flowey has. So, it's very deliberate.
So part of me does wonder if, and mind you, I'm sure they were doing this respectfully, but maybe they were doing that to, again, address critiques being
well, not
thrown at
necessarily,
Undertale.
just taking their own stance on certain things, trying to have fun, especially because the main goal was to create an artistic, for the devs, foreign gnomes, was to create an artistic experience, which meant, prioritizing how the game looks and sounds. Specifically, not necessarily the pixel art style, but the fact that most of the fights are an acid trip. It's one of the reasons why Shiri can join us in that, because most of the visuals are very psychedelic, to say the least. Not necessarily seizure-inducing, but very colorful.
I'm guessing on par with the true pacifist final battle.
Well, that was like chromatic in some aspects. So just look around at some of the fights, Joe, and you'll be able to on YouTube, and you'll be able to see.
Sure. Still, it is something I'm interested in looking at, so it'll be nice to check that out eventually.
Mm-hmm. We even had, for the console versions, we even had a bunch of extra songs not attached to the story, just to have a couple of fights themed with specific music, with some guest composers, like one of the Mega Man composers, I think. And even they got
Manami Matsume.
I think that's her. And they got even David Wise lives for one. So, yeah.
You know, I will say, if there's one thing I do like about the gaming industry, it's at least that indies are definitely a lot more now, in a sense, mainstream than they were back in the day.
Well, it also helps that they're providing, now they're finally at the point where they're providing consistently viable alternatives where the good stuff outweighs the junk, you know, and
Yes.
that the AAA industry in comparison is not offering as much, you know, of a competitive product, so people are, you know, resorting to go there because it costs less and provides better opportunities. So,
Honestly, I think it's to a point where some IPs that certain companies are sitting on, they could just give to an indie. Like, I get why they don't give it away, but it's frustrating to see them just sit
it's
on
like
it
that
and
quote
do nothing
from
with
that
it.
not a bridge, that Machinima Mass Effect series with Shepard going, "My brand."
I remember that line from Smiling Friends. It's my IP to sit on and do nothing with. Specifically that bit. I'm guessing you're not a fan of Smiling Friends.
Let me put it this way, Jova. It's a good argument for me to say that Zaslav is not spending well money in regards to Warner Bros. Properties. If you basically, you know, negate something and instead allow something else, I take that as a statement. I'm sorry.
You know what? You know what? That's a fair enough point. Like,
It's kind of like with
I
the
am more-
latest Shyamalan movie, Trap, you know, which was nobody cared and it was a bomb. But no, David, sure, give it another go to the guy. I'm sure this next one will be fine.
You know, Shyamalan's career truly baffles me. Like, you know, at first it was easy to understand. He was just getting worse with each movie. Then it seemed like he was getting better. Then he ruined his comeback. Now, it's like pointless how put it. His superpower is constantly being on the brink of a career failure, only to make a maybe okay, if not good film, and suddenly people give him all the chances in the world again. I just don't even get it. Like, okay, I have to wonder. Was Zaslav just in on the meme? Like, because I feel like at this point, Shyamalan survives mostly on meme power energy.
I don't
or,
know what
you know,
I don't know what Zaslav thinks. To be honest, it really is a mystery, you know, because there is no real corporate logic even in a corporate way to understand the guy. Because you know, if
Oh,
it was just
yeah.
a matter of the statement, you know, kids stuff, you know, we don't like, we only want to make you know, adult-oriented content. That makes sense, you know, but there are still, you know, plenty of animated, you know, shows and everything that are allowed, so I don't know. Okay, I get also that the joke that a lot of times Takyon's filter voice might sound breeding, but I don't think as much as the characters are created.
The Lombaxes raised you. How could you do this to them?
Creatures have a goal to pity me. I spent
dare they take pity on me? So he's so petty that he's mad, not that they banished his people, but more so that they dared to have compassion for him.
Basically, he felt very humiliated. Yeah, oh, no. Yeah, you're right.
Just move it a little to the right.
So basically, so if I understood that right, he basically he hates the Lombaxes because they felt sorry for him.
And remember also the backstory. They banished the rest of his species, even found him by accident and took pity on him. For him, he felt, you know, that was even more humiliating than anything. And remember, it seems that, you know, the franchise seems to actually, at the very least, imply that the Cragmites had nothing but contempt for every other species in the galaxy.
Yeah.
And that's also another thing. Unlike with the prequel war from Gears of War, which at least that had the comics to talk about, the conflict between the Cragmites and the Lombaxes is something that is only told us. We don't even get flashback scenes about it. It's only just told to us how it happened, and the consequences of that, which is kind of a mistake to me. We'll take even a comic series that explain that if at least we got, a visual comprehension, because it's such an important event to establish for this new spin in the franchise that I really wish we would be able to actually witness it. That's why my big speculation, if we get this fabled new game, quote unquote, is that it might, if it's really about finally finding the Lombaxes, it will start probably with a flashback, with a sequence where you control Ratchet's father during the assault of Tachyon, and you get to see the fact that he chose to stay behind. Because that's kind of basically what happened. We'll get more detailed confirmation in Crack in Time, but that's kind of what happened. Ratchet's father, as I mentioned, was one of the people who stayed behind. So, again, it's something that I just wanted to see to some extent, even inside material, potentially. I know that there's the whole stigma about, telling a story not in the intended medium, but I just wanted closure on that. And so far, the franchise has just, has jingled keys in front of my faces about it.
Part of me wonders if that's them doing what a lot of franchises do when they're trying to basically go on forever, have a goal in mind, but right at the last minute, whoop, not quite yet.
It also depends. If it's something like, say, Detective Conan, where the intended idea is to have the conclusion being way later on, so, they take their sweetest time in progressing the status quo and have instead a murder of a week type of story, that I get, but for this one, it also depends. Like I said, I do excuse Rift Apart because it has such a troubled development cycle that having the end result, like I said, being just a stepping stone in terms of narrative towards the bigger picture, that I get. As much as, it pains me, at the very least, it's not atrocious or anything like that. I'm glad that the final product is still enjoyable at the end of the day. But, by God, I really hope that the next game, at the very least, progresses things, if not finally concludes them. At least for the sake of the studio,
For me, what comes to mind when I think of plot that's meant to basically go endlessly on, and mind you, this may be more so how it felt like watching it as a kid, but Samurai Jack. Like, okay, there's been a lot of theories going on that originally the idea with Samurai Jack was that Jack was going to stay in the past.
That's what happens in the IDW comics, which were done before Season 5.
But the thing is like, when I watched that show as a kid, it was one of those shows that felt like they did not have an ending in mind. Mind you, this is probably due to just how TV shows tend to air their episodes, essentially. It's like, you catch it on the weekday, it's a random one.
Compared to Powerpuff Girls and Dexter's Lab, the other properties Genny Tartakovsky worked on, this was basically one of the only major Cartoon Network serialized shows. So
pretty much, yeah. It's just that when the show ended for multiple reasons, but when the show had that ending, some people theorized that, it was never meant to have an ending, and like, I'm trying to wonder, has there ever truly been a series that never had an ending in mind, just planned to go on endlessly like that? Like, I mean, okay, as kids, it felt like that, but that was because we didn't really get how these sort of programs worked. Like, as an adult...
The Simpsons,
Well, Simpsons isn't really a serialized epic or anything like that. The Simpsons, for better or for worse, are slice of life. So that I'm talking about, say, let's imagine even that.
It's still adapted a lot of the stories, like the Judas Contract. I know, but otherwise it just was being an adaptation of DC Comics stuff, and doing whatever they wanted with a team.
Okay, Teen Titans at least got something of an end, though. Oh, God. The actual end of that one is... I don't want to go into a rant on it. I'll just say that Trouble in Tokyo is a better, proper end for it, thank God. But okay, I think a comparison would be like, imagine if, say, oh, I guess I might as well say it, Sonic Underground. They technically never did find the mother. I mean, it
Not
ends
even
on them
in the
bombing.
comics.
Yeah, that's the insane thing. Like, look, Sonic Underground had a lot of its detractors, but it did have fans still. It is jarring. Now, mind you, Archie Comics was going more for a Sad AM thing, and in that case, Sonic's parents and family were a bit different there, but even still, you'd think that years later they might have made a cute little comic spin-off sequel to Underground, but nope. They made a vow their mother would be found. Never found her. We did bomb the hell out of Robotnik in the end, though, so
There's still
maybe
some
we
level
should
of
assume he's
conclusion,
dead.
but not clearly not as satisfying as it would be. Anyway, I think it's time to finally confront Tachyon. So let's finally enter the what remains of Lombaxes ruins. Well, also trying to get as much upgrades as I can.
Nice to know that the mob also has the cellars here.
With their city decimated by my enforcers, your race took refuge behind these walls. They believed if they left this dimension, I would leave Polaris unscathed.
You're lying! Lombaxes don't run.
Is that so? Dimensionator!
So Tachyon, surprisingly, wants to do one last trick. No strings attached, he just wants to let Ratchet go. Back with the Lombaxes.
Cowards! All of them! Only two stayed behind. The Keeper of the Dimensionator and his inmates.
Well, not exactly, but Tachyon doesn't know that, so fair.
Yeah,
Let's
like,
give him the benefit of the doubt.
Pity he sent you to Solana before we could meet. I offer you this one chance. Go home, join your race, or stay and suffer.
Or, just throwing it out there, we can beat you and then use the Dimensionator to find the Lombaxes. But no, I guess we had to work with one Clank's logic about destroying it.
Yeah, like, I get it, the idea that the Dimensionator is too dangerous,
But
but
I'm sure Ratchet
maybe we
can
could
use
just...
it for that, you know. But whatever,
Yes.
that's not the point now. The point is to defeat Tachyon. And again, honest to God, sure, he's still riding a mech, but we finally get to fight him instead of, you know, just having another thing as the final boss. So again, I appreciate that. Kind of similar to Chairman Drac in the first game.
I do like that, yes. Like, I have never been a fan of when the villain either gets suddenly sidestepped by...
No. Work, you infernal machine!
Uh-oh.
Well, you asked for it.
You were right. Wormhole devices
Da-da-da-da-da-da. Boom.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. It's not like one of those hollow films where you think the guy's
Oh,
dead and
we had to do this, of course.
No. What have you done? You ruined everything!
Alright, phase 2.
We are so screwed.
It's your own
That's-
fault.
It's just a change of scenery, really. You should be fine.
Yeah, just to showcase the fact that the Dimensionator can be very trippy, and also to give Tachyon a couple of new attacks. But otherwise,
But
yeah,
yeah.
it's basically the same. Go on.
But you know, it's funny we were talking about Undertale and its issues with nuance here. Like, yeah, the issue with the whole plot point of the Dimensionator is, oh no, it's too dangerous. We absolutely have to destroy it. Not like we can trust any of us with it. Like
Like, sure, I
feel
wouldn't give that to Quark, for example, you know. But, Lord
But it's
knows
like, I
what
mean-
will happen.
I think it would have been at least a nice story point if Clank does stand up to the.
Well, okay, to be fair, as the game progresses, that's kinda his story arc, basically, part of his story arc. Actually trusting the idea that the Dimensionator can be used for this specific purpose. Oh, and by the way, yes, you can use also the Groovytron also on Tachyon.
Yes.
Like I said,
Again,
no one is immune to this. Again, I do appreciate it because a lot of games, particularly RPGs, love to just make bosses immune to every single debuff possible. But at least for this, even if it's such a small thing, it's still appreciated.
Could you imagine if the Groovytron was in like other series? Like, what about the big climatic battle against Sephiroth or something?
Forcing him to
It
do
ends
the
with a dance battle.
Fortnite taunt dance.
You know,
All
the
that
thing
big build
is.
up to the big, serious, epic battle with a really dark tone and everything, and it gets and it clashes with Sephiroth being forced to dance to the funky tunes.
You know, the thing is, in Devil May Cry, this would be a debuff to Virgil, but this would actually be a buff to Dante, since legit, some of Dante's dance moves can indeed function as attacks nowadays.
It's more also how you use the different styles. Also, as you can see by my nanotech, despite having all of these and having one of possibly the strongest armor in the game until the point, this fight is still not super easy, so watch out for that.
You can't kill me, Lombax. Only I know your true purpose in this galaxy. Only I know
Sure
your
you do.
true name.
Yeah, who cares? To quote, to use a quote from the Cyberman, the secrets of the Doctor are no use to us.
Well, let's see. He just fell into a black hole.
He
so
survived this.
Off the primary reflex coil.
Of course.
Although, here's the interesting thing, the thing that the plumber gave us is the McGuffin that saves the thing in the end.
Dimensionator, find home.
Define home, sir.
Again, to be fair, the Dimensionator scans his cerebral pattern, so I can believe the fact that when he says home, that's what he's visualizing.
And then he ends up in someone else's home.
It's kind of similar to how the Death Note works by you thinking about the image of a person that you're writing the name of, you know.
Unfortunately, Ratchet, we ended up in a home of some random people we don't know. They had
So-
quite the fright when they discovered us.
Tachyon is gone, the world is saved, for some reason Rusty Pete is with us. Yeah, I don't get it either. Like, I don't hate him, but I don't understand why this franchise now pretends that he is chum with everyone.
Weird, because, you know, technically it should be the whole pirate crew, but I digress.
Well, there's also how the next game Quest for Booty will handle him, so keep that also in mind.
I am Tachyon.
So, the important part is that now that the Dimensionator is broken, you know, it's not functioning as intended, so for all intents and purposes we don't have to destroy it, thankfully.
Die, Cragmite fiend!
Will you two be careful? Krunk's head is a microcubit away from popping off.
Oh well. That still leaves a couple of questions in mind, like, you know, what happens until now.
About my father. About my
And yeah,
purpose.
about the larger
I detected
history of
no lie in his
Lombaxes.
voice.
So,
But I believe your purpose has already been filled. You vanquished Tachyon. Something even
yeah,
the
turns out we
Lombaxes
just
could
needed
not
more
do.
firepower.
Thanks, Clank.
Who knew?
And a
Oh,
black
speaking
hole.
of unfinished business,
Don't look at me. You said it was broken.
here's the Zoni.
Now
now-
showing themselves to everyone.
Yep. And they wanted Clank to survive up until this point.
Clank. Are these the Zoni?
Because
Yep.
we got to learn stuff about Ratchet's backstory. The next game, and I mean the next big one, A Crank in Time, we'll get to learn instead properly Clank's backstory. What's that? You thought you knew everything since the first game established right at the beginning? Ha! You will have to
Oh
see what
boy.
happened. And yeah, by the way, that's how the game ends. The Zoni just snatch away Clank, and nobody knows what to say. Doesn't know what to say. Like, again, I'm glad that Quark doesn't make jokes and everybody is sad about it, but my god, talk about snatching away the happiness of the victory that we achieved. I get
It's
it.
like,
I get it about hooking up for the next game, but Jesus, imagine
It's
if
like
we
that.
hadn't followed up. We would have gotten a situation like his life or his life in time.
I know, right? It's like, guys, I feel like the ending was bittersweet enough with Ratchet debating about ever finding out about his people and purpose. And the weird thing is, the music sounds happy
No, I was gonna
during
say,
this.
it's like David Bergeron didn't get the memo.
Especially also for the credits. I don't remember when, but we will get even a licensed song for the credits. And Memory of Dan Johnson, which passed away around this time. But yeah,
Like, okay.
that is, for intents and purposes, Tools of Destruction. We will have an extra part after this, but we can start our final thoughts. There is no post-credit scene, so Libs.
Solid enough, I guess. This is basically what it was before. PS2 games, albeit slightly more polished, and on the PS3, and thankfully, all in a consistent 16:9. No going back and forth between two different aspect ratios, at least.
Mm-hmm.
I am glad that the whole conflict between Ratchet and Clank wasn't a flat-out reversion on Ratchet's part back to his 2002 self, because that would have been like, oh boy, you did all that work just to go back on it. Thankfully, didn't do that. And the ending, well, it's kind of remind me a lot of those Saturday morning cartoon series cliffhangers.
Yeah.
Will Ratchet save Clank, or will Clank be hypnotized by those little imaginary bots? Tune in next season, as long as we don't repeat it again.
Yeah,
You know,
we were
it's
talking
fun.
about Sonic. That's kind of like how the climax of Sat AM happened.
I mean, I'll give Sat AM credit. Like, it had the cliffhanger, but at least for all intents and purposes, Robotnik was actually defeated. Like, this is weird. And the funny thing is, technically this game came out right before Secret Agent Clank, so imagine going from the end of Tools to Destruction to suddenly going, oh look, Clank's back, but it turns out that he's actually been Secret Agent Clank all along. Now, chronologically, apparently, Secret Agent Clank is supposed to come after size matters anyway, but it's funny to think of. Now, to be fair, it was more so PSP and PS2 oriented, so chances were this was for the market that, didn't buy a PS3 essentially, so maybe they may not have been aware. But if you were like, say, a Ratchet and Clank nut, imagine going from Tools of Destruction to Secret Agent Clank all of a sudden.
Yeah, again, that's it, honestly. It's
Are you excited to see how we go from here?
Yeah, I'm okay enough. Although it'll be interesting because from what I've looked into, the next game is the last one with David Bergeron involved.
Yeah, well, it kind of makes sense because it's very directly connected to this one. It's kind of the joke that people made is that it's a DLC episode that was released as standalone.
I was going to say, because the future series continued on, but they got different composers.
Yeah.
Because not exactly similar, but it's like when when around this, a little bit around this time, when the Legend of Spyro games are coming out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the first two were done by Chrome, but then the third one was just done by some random French group.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Even though all three are meant to be the continuations of the same story.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of the inverse, because at least they kept the same composers.
Yeah.
It's just weird when this stuff happens. You think you'd want the same if you're doing a planned trilogy or series of something, you'd think you'd want the as much of the same crew as possible retained throughout.
I don't know what are the circumstances of why David, was not able to return. Maybe he got tired, maybe he was fired, maybe there was just, a discrepancy between the team and him. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, Libs.
Yeah. But yeah, that's it for me.
Jova.
For the most part, this is a good Ratchet and Clank game if you just want to go in and play some Ratchet and Clank stuff here. If you're not a fan of a slower frame rate because of it either having technological limitations or them intentionally hampering the frame rate to make it feel more cinematic, that's going to be an unfortunate thing. Let me put it like this. It doesn't feel terrible, but I wouldn't say it feels amazing either. It feels like basically like another episode of the show, basically. If you want the full collection, go ahead and get it. You won't have any egregious problems playing it. But would I go out of my way to play it? Well, okay, if I'm trying to look at the Future Saga as a whole, sure, but on its own, like I've mentioned, I don't hate it. I do feel a bit iffy about the retcons it does with not just Ratchet but also Clank, going on about how, oh, no, these two weren't just two normal guys who met by chance in the first game. No. They were people with destinies. Now, the Chosen One TV trope is a tool, essentially. It can be used well. I feel like Star Wars actually worked with it well enough in the prequels. This, however, feels like, I don't know, like, it's like maybe this was them trying to really, raise the stakes and whatnot, but I don't know. I feel like making it so that, oh, Ratchet is the last of his series, except he isn't. We already have heard another Lombax show up, and Ratchet even mentioned in the second game, oh, we Lombaxes, we travel the galaxy, but we don't often run into each other, establishing that there were more out there. Like, I normally wouldn't raise as much a fuss at a retcon, but this is the kind of retcon that really feels like it contradicts. Like, they thought more so about how cool it would be without figuring how it would fit into the mythos. I can get why probably not too many people raised as much a fuss, since Ratchet and Clank is practically a half step away from being episodic, but nonetheless, it does still have a continuity. One that this game feels like it shirks at times. That being said, all the same, I do think it's a fine enough venture. The ending, though, was needlessly cliffhanger-ish. Like, I mean, again, it's that kind of ending that feels like it is just testing Destiny to see if it will actually get a sequel. I mean, don't get me wrong, Ratchet and Clank had a good pedigree at that time, but like Tia said, can you imagine if for whatever reason Sony went, well, this didn't sell enough, we're done with this series, and
again,
that's
it
how the
has
series
happened
ends.
with Sly on the PS3.
Exactly. Like, I mean, and I get it. Sometimes cliffhangers can be a thing, but I feel like you should only do that if you know for certain you're getting a sequel. And maybe they did, in which case, fair and fine enough, but yeah, the ending just feels so iffy enough. Not to mention the fact that it plays happy music, while the game clearly looks upset that Clank got taken.
I think, okay, I get it at this point, the concept of having stingers all, at the end of the credits was not as popularized because, this was right before the first Iron Man movie. Again, stingers were a thing even before that, like with Ferris Bueller's
Oh yeah,
Day Off,
definitely.
obviously.
Like, they
but
definitely
not as
existed
popularized, what I
before.
mean. But if they reserved the scene where Clank gets taken over after the credits, probably would have helped better. It's still a hook, but at the very least, for the purpose, the main game ends on that happy note that transitions in the credits. So.
Okay, my point. Okay, well, the way I would have done it basically is have Clank be taken at like the start of a more relevant game. Like, maybe it had to go that way for Quest of Booty. I was not a fly in the dev room, essentially, but it just feels so jarring. With or without the context of the zeitgeist of the MCU, I just don't feel like it was the best stinger to do. Other than that, the gameplay seems fair and fine enough. The music seems mostly good, even if I can't remember all of it, but the most memorable stuff is definitely the pirate music. I'm not a fan of how some plot points are just dropped, though. Like, again, Ratchet, you are now commander of a space pirate armada who could maybe help you combat the Cragmites. Use that, but nope, he leaves them, only for the second-in-command to show up again at the end. Like,
Again, this will have repercussions in Quest for Booty, so you'll be able to see that.
Yeah, and that is nice. I just feel like this game in particular, and mind you, it does share some issues I have with the future games as a whole. It picks and chooses and then picks up and drops elements here and there. That being said, that's just me going very analytical with the story here and there. The game as a whole feels like another Ratchet and Clank game with a few new bells and whistles, but for the most part, is a Ratchet and Clank game. So at the end of the day, it is a game that is doing its job, even if I'm not the most fond of it. Nevertheless, if you really do want the full collection, this does not seem like a title you'll necessarily regret adding to it. Tio, close us out with yours.
Honestly, this is fine overall as a package. As a transitioning point towards the HD era, I argue the graphics are the thing, at least the thing that has aged possibly, or was particularly towards one of our main characters. Clank is fine, mostly because, metallic surfaces and not too much details, but Ratchet's model really doesn't have gained many favors over the years, if you ask me. Uh, and also quirky in some aspects, I will argue. But other than that, most of the game is perfectly fine. The arsenal is still consistently creative. There's a new interesting idea that instead of just Gadgetron, you have the Grumbles giving you tools and expanding them with the Raritanium. The music is on point for the most part, but obviously David and the other guy clearly allowed more to do the pirate stuff more than anything. The aesthetic of the planet is a bit less imaginative compared to the other trilogy, the original tetralogy, sorry, but I argue it's still fine overall. And honestly, even the new supporting characters and the villain are solid for this first entry alone. Again, the Tachyon would be the classic kind of guy that risks of becoming very forgettable, but I argue despite the very shrivelly kind of voice, he manages to stand out, and his importance connected to the Lombaxes does help, in my opinion. Sure, not on the levels of Nefarious, I get it, but honestly, he still holds on his own, much like Chairman Drake did in the first game. Shout out also goes to, well, the Pirates captain's leg, I can tell Robin Atkinson was doing a lot of things around this specific time frame, the second half of the of the 2000s, and you can tell that while this probably was another role that he probably had fun just to do the pirate accent, so good on him for that. The major big problems are mostly the retcons applied, as Jova said. Again, I'm more tolerant towards some stuff, mostly because it elevates how our characters, did. Sure, it takes a bit away from the corporate satire that the original tetralogy did have, but I argue it's still interesting, at least in the direction they wanted to go. Again, taking just this game in isolation. It's just a matter of seeing as things unfold, that we wanted to do a bit of a deeper analysis. But anyway, that's kinda it. I still enjoy the end of the day. It's much like the rest of the franchise. The PS3 games do need a remaster, a set of remasters. One that, finally properly unlocks the frame rate in a decent kind of manner. And also gives trophy support. Both these and Quest for Booty do not have trophy support because they were early PS3 games, unfortunately. So they're
God, I
technically
can't believe that
the
there
only
are
games
actually
of a
PS3
franchise
games
that
that
don't know.
don't have that.
Like, again, most of the early PS3 games, so, Genji, Days of Blade, Folklore, Heavenly Sword, those one. I don't remember who was the first to start it. Some games actually got patched in with the trophies, like Metal Gear Solid 4, maybe or not. Anyway, then digressing. Technically speaking, there is, a game after this, but we're not done. Tune in for the next part where we analyze the extra stuff. So see you for that.
See you then.